Hello, Chris Green here with the Flood Insurance Guru. Today we're going to be talking about flood maps in Alabama and why they're changing and some of the impacts that can happen when this does happen. But before we get started today, remember, if you've got questions about flood insurance, flood education, flood zone changes, click below to visit our website, floodinsuranceguru.com. Remember, we have an educational background in flood mitigation, which means we're here to help you understand flood risks like this, your flood insurance, and mitigating your property long term to help you minimize flood losses and flood premiums. So let's talk about flood maps in Alabama today. You know, doing a lot in Alabama when it comes to flood education, flood awareness, there's always these maps changing. You know, someone's been placed in a special flood hazard area, someone's been taken out. So first of all, why are these flood maps changing in Alabama? You know, the way they're going on, for example, in Mobile, Alabama, where they recently changed a couple years ago in Owens Crossroads. The reason these maps are changing is they're out of date. You see, there's a lot of development going on. Things change in nature, like you can see right here with us. You know, you have a higher amount of flooding as land develops. As people move in, some of this topography and the elevations change. And because of this, maps are being updated to give a more accurate level of what the flood risk is. Now, these flood maps generally in Alabama are broken into V zones, which is going to be your coastal zones, also known as velocity zones. Then you've got your A and your AE, which are your special flood hazard areas, like where we're standing right now, also called the 100-year flood zone. Then you also got flood zone X, which is a low risk, where flood insurance is not going to be required, but it's still recommended. So these are some of the things that are constantly happening in Alabama. Now, your community is working with FEMA to help mitigate the flooding in your area. And that's one of the reasons why maybe you had a property that was moved from a high-risk flood zone to a low-risk flood zone. It's because certain risks changed. But maybe you were placed into a high-risk flood zone. So the reason for this, a lot of it has to do with land development and just things changing over time. Remember, when it comes to these developed areas, they work a little different than non-developed. You see, in these natural settings, you can have about 90% of runoff that soaks into the ground and doesn't really run down the hill or run off. But when you're talking about something like a parking lot, then you might have 90% runoff. Well, that water's got to go somewhere. So this is one of the reasons why these maps change a lot. Now, it's important to understand when your maps might be changing, when you might have to take flood insurance out. Maybe you got a letter from your mortgage company. Maybe you don't have a mortgage company. You didn't even know your flood zone changed until you went to sell your house. It's something we see every day. So that's what we want to talk about today, is why flood maps are changing in Alabama the way they are. And it's not just Alabama, it's across the whole country. But you need to be prepared if your flood map does change, to know what to do before the map changes, how to dispute it. So if you've got questions about things like this, make sure to visit our website, floodinsuranceguru.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, where we do these daily flood education videos. Remember, we have an educational background in flood mitigation, which means we can help you understand flood risks like this right here, your flood insurance, and mitigating your property long term to help you minimize flood losses and flood premiums. Thank you.